Africa has got to be free.
Greetings, everyone. I hope you are fine. I hope you are doing well. I'm Olani Moloi. I live in South Africa. And thank you very much for taking your precious time to watch this video. And if you want to support this channel, please press that subscribe button, that like button, like never before. Based on the title of my video, many of you may disagree with me already. However, I have a different context. When I say Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma for president, I'm actually supporting her ideology based on the video which I reacted on my previous video. And many people or some people commented there, left their comments, and they were like, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma is now old. Yes, I agree. And some say she's the ally of the ANC, and others are like she's been working as the part of ANC government. And again, I would like to say I agree on that as well. But my context is completely different, because I'm like, when it comes to South Africa, I trust that Black people can build South Africa. I believe that African people or South Africans, Black people, can build South Africa, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your religion, regardless of your politics. For an example, I'm not a member of any other political party. I'm not a member of any religion. I'm not a member of any union. I'm not a member when it comes to these groups. But I believe that we Africans, Black people here in South Africa, we can build a better South Africa without a colonizer. I believe so. That's my context. It's not like, for an example, to say Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, I'm like someone who has the same ideology. In other words, someone who knows our problem, or who understands our problem, our stumbling blocks, someone who understands where we come from as a people. Because I don't like these leaders that some of you or many of you prefer, because these leaders, they want to suppress our history. In other words, they're like, yes, we have to come together, but under one condition. We have to forget our own history. That's terrible. That's not a good thing at all. To say, let's come together, but under one condition. So I will never collaborate or form friendships with anyone who will say, we can come together, but forget your story, forget your history, forget where you come from. In other words, someone who will try to justify that apartheid was good, was better. I know there are people who would prefer to be kicked as long as they have those jobs. I understand. It doesn't mean employment is not a necessity. Employment is a necessity. But we should not use the apartheid system as a solution. And we should not praise the apartheid system, because when they build houses, when they build cities, when they build the economy, they did that for themselves. Some people might say they've also built houses for Black people. Yes, they build those camps so that you can be close to those factories, because they wanted to boost their economy. They build those railways so that you can be close to their own places, because they wanted you all the time. That was a strategy. It was not about you. So it was not for your interest. That is why they never built a city of Black people. They didn't do that. But they built a city for themselves, and they built also the camps next to the city. That is why around Johannesburg, if you can look those places, so where to you go to East Rand, Tembisa, those places, they are around the city. That is why the railway has to be close to those places, so that the railways can take you to the farms, so that you can work for them. So they had a strategy. So black people, like, again, they can do the same thing. They can do the same thing, but they are also failing. But what I'm trying to say is that apartheid system was all about themselves. Was all about themselves. There's not even a record where they empowered black people and they shared the economy with black people wholeheartedly. We don't have that record. We do not have that record. But anyway, if you want to vote for them, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you believe that apartheid was a better government, then you can just go ahead and cast your vote. And I believe that black people, black people are many, and if they all agree, then we can quickly go back to apartheid system. But when it comes to Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, I like the ideology. It's not about like Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma or Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma as a member of a certain political party or as a member of African National Congress. It's not like that. It's not like that. My position is that when you have someone who knows your history, who knows that there's a stumbling block here, you need to be decolonized. In other words, you need to decolonize the colonizer out of your mind. In other words, you have to be emancipated from mental slavery. If we have someone who understands that, then it means we have a leader, someone who doesn't suppress our history, someone who doesn't say, forget about your history, someone who doesn't say your history doesn't matter, someone who doesn't say your forefathers who died as a result of this, it doesn't matter. We don't want such a leader, but we want a leader who will say, right now, we need to do something which is very important. We need to invest in our people. Like, for an example, when you go through the ancient scrolls, you'll find that there's a man by the name of Nebuchadnezzar or Nebuchadnezzar. This is the man who was like, go all out anywhere in my country. Find young people who are intelligent, young people who are wise. He was not talking about the memorization technique. He was talking about people with different skill sets, knowledge. In other words, people who can participate in various activities. We can talk about leadership, development, invention, and all those things. So in other words, if you have a leader and you know the stumbling block that our problem is that we've been colonized, now you have to make sure that we are sober, because you cannot, like, for an example, train or equip someone who is not sober. In other words, we have to be sober. And once you are sober, that's when you will notice that in our areas, crime will go down. People who are selling the washing powder will decrease, and people who believe that alcohol is the only source to relieve stress or the only method to relieve stress, it will decrease. Families will start to come together. Then society will end up having one vision. Why? Because now you have been like emancipated from mental slavery. In other words, now you love yourself. You cannot love yourself and still do things that show that you don't love yourself. For an example, we will stop hating one another. We will stop being jealous of one another. The moment you start loving yourself, you will stop employing people just because you want to sleep with them first. You'll stop doing that. That's a sign of not loving yourself. You misuse your own power because you've been manipulated to the core. If you have that leader, that kind of a leader, now this leader should say, I'll create a program to teach people their history, to decolonize their minds, and then go all over South Africa, find people with different kinds of skill sets, people who have multiple skills or different skills, so that we can solve our problems in a country. Because it doesn't mean if you are a leader, you have to be a genius. You must know everything when it comes to science, when it comes to technology, when it comes to engineering, and so forth and so forth. But you have to invest in your own people. South Africans never got a chance, but the people who got a chance are the ANC people, the people of the colonizer. Ordinary South Africans did not get a chance. So that is why right now, if you have a solution when it comes to our electricity problem, you become a threat even to the government that is collapsing, the government that is desperate. In other words, your life become in danger because now you are a threat to these companies that are making profit out of our people. If you can try to come up with a solution to say, I have a solution when it comes to electricity, so that electricity can become very, very cheap, you become a threat. That's a sign of manipulation. That's a sign of like the colonizer is still there. We are depending upon the colonizer because some of these people, of our leaders, they have shares in these companies. So that is why you become a threat. So we need a leader who will say, go all over. Our people should be tested first before we can say we have failed. Because right now, I haven't failed. The people who have failed are the people of ANC, are these politicians. They have failed. Your mayors, your councillors, all these people have failed. But it doesn't mean everybody has failed. Before we can say, you know what, now we need to go back to the former regime. We need someone who will not suppress our history. I'm using Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma as an example based on the video of hers which I reacted on, where she spoke about emancipating our minds from mental slavery. That's a good thing. It doesn't mean just because she's the member of the ANC, I should not agree with that. Because when I say black people should come together and we can build South Africa together, I should not exclude those who voted for ANC, even though I have never voted for ANC in my life. Because from day one, I was like, as a young boy, I was like, you know what, ANC is a scam. Because I grew up in the farms where sometimes we would be chased with dogs. And it was after 1994, and I was like, what's going on? This democracy is fake, because we are still chased by police using dogs, and it was really tough, you know. And it was after 1994. That is why I was like, this whole thing is a scam. So when I had an opportunity to vote for the first time, I was like, there's no way I can vote for African National Congress. And again, I would like to thank people like Mutsuku Peku, who was like, for an example, an opposer of ANC back then, and not just an opposer of ANC or a politician, but a scholar of history, a historian, who made me like, or who influenced me to love my history. So that is why I'm like, when it comes to a leader, choosing a leader, I don't want to choose a leader who will suppress my history. Because if you want to suppress my history, you become a threat to me. I cannot trust you. So the reason some of us cannot trust these people who are trending these days. The reason we cannot trust them is because they want to suppress our own history. They want to act as if apartheid was a good thing. Apartheid system was a good thing. Because if I define apartheid with one word, I can say cruelty. There's absolutely nothing good that can come out of cruelty. If I can describe ANC government with one word, I can say disaster. And there's nothing good that can come out of disaster. So in other words, I cannot say disaster is bad. And since this disaster is bad, it's better to go back to cruelty. No, both of them are not good. So if you want to correct ANC without like bringing cruelty to say, but we can go back to cruelty. Absolutely not. That's bad. So that is why my point of view is that we need someone who understands our history, because most of these leaders, most of these leaders are just hiding behind other leaders. They are just hiding behind certain ideologies. But if you can give them an opportunity, they won't do the right thing. So when it comes to these leaders, I'm a fan of ideology. If I like your ideology, regardless of whether you are a Muslim or a Christian, and etc., I will support your ideology. So right now, as we speak, I can say I support the ideology of Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma to say we have to decolonize. I don't know when that video was recorded, but the most important thing is that she's right. We need to decolonize. Then after that, if we fail, then some of you can freely go back to the former regime and see what are they going to do. Because if someone doesn't acknowledge that they did something wrong to you, they become a threat. In other words, probably, or there's a high possibility that they will do the very same thing again. Some people who say apartheid will not come back, they are joking. Look at what is happening in Palestine. Look what is happening in Palestine. The likes of Donald Trump, they are behind that. They are behind Israel. It's possible, again, that they can come here in South Africa and support the people that you are supporting, but they won't support you. You get what I'm saying? So this is just my honest position. Thank you very much.